Hello, my name is Ann Bacon, and I run a nonprofit that helps low-income families in central Iowa, including Boone County.
Good for you, Ann. Let's give her a round of applause on that.
Most people would agree that our measurement of poverty in this country is antiquated. Currently, if you hear that someone's in poverty, that means the government says if you make above $24,000 a year, you're out of poverty. So my first question is, how would you measure poverty? And the second question I have is, what happens to the programs that are currently in place that people would price out of with their $1,000 a month?
Well, first, thank you for the work you do every day to make families and communities stronger. People express frustration to me all the time that the way many of our programs are designed right now is that if you make above a certain amount, then you start losing all the benefits. I had so many people say to me that that actually keeps them from doing part-time work or things that they'd want to do. And that's one reason why I'm so passionate about this dividend, because it helps alleviate that incentive, because you get this dividend, you get it, you do a part-time job on top of it, you get that too. It helps line it up. So to the extent that this dividend pushes your income level up, I would ensure that it does not eliminate your ability to access certain programs. I do want to make clear, though, that this dividend is universal and opt-in, but if you opt into it, you're choosing to forego certain cash and cash-like benefits from things like heating oil subsidies and things like that. When I talk to people who are on these means-tested programs, most of them say they would dramatically prefer $1,000 unconditional cash they can do whatever they want with than something they can only spend in a particular narrow way. As to how you define poverty, I mean, it depends so much upon what someone's circumstances are. I've got a special needs child, and if you know your kid needs something and you can't get it to them, then I know there's like no worse feeling in the world. And so I think you could be poor and be making over $24,000 a year if there are needs in your family that you can't meet. So that to me would be the way we should look at it, is not like just a strict dollar amount, but it's like, what are the needs of your family, and can you actually access them in a real way? On the other end of the spectrum, I talk to older Americans who are literally, they don't qualify as poor, but they're cutting pills in half, they're rationing drugs, they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff because they need some prescription drugs that for whatever reason are like thousands and thousands of dollars. And so that also can make one feel very, very poor very, very quickly if all of your money is getting consumed by life-saving medication that you have no choice but to pay for.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Jackson. I'm actually from Fort Lauderdale, and it's in South Florida. It's freezing up here. But I wanted to say, first of all, that in a country that appears very anti-intellectual, every time I come to one of your rallies, I feel like I know more than what I came with. So what do you think about the state of affording housing? So in South Florida, this is totally not Boone, I'm sorry, but in South Florida, the rent is sky high, and folks can't afford their living situation. So what do you plan to do when it comes to affordable housing efforts? Oh, here too? See?
Yeah, no, it's not just a Florida problem. It's an Iowa problem. It's an everywhere problem. That we have an affordable housing crisis in a whole lot of the country. And a lot of it's because they're a combination of things. The economic incentives are for developers or pretty much anyone to try and build the nicest housing stock they can. And so you end up with gentrifying of neighborhoods. And then people are like, I can't afford this. And they're like, well, tough luck on you. And so then you end up with people getting shoved out. And then if you ask someone whether they're for affordable housing developments, everyone says yes. And then when you say, are you for an affordable housing development in your neighborhood, then everyone says no. So that is what we have to try and alleviate. And there are some things you can do from the federal level. You can put in more housing incentives through the HUD and make it so that you can build more affordable housing units in different areas. It's tough though, because the last thing anyone would want is for the federal government to override the local government, and the local government says, hey, don't want an affordable housing development here, and then the feds go, yes, there. Like that's not anything that anyone would want. So you have to have the federal government working with communities to try and put the incentives in place in a way that the community is excited to make use of them. I will say that that putting direct cash in your hands in the form of this $1,000 a month does help alleviate this burden significantly. And if your landlord tries to stick it to you, which at least a couple of them would, then you can look at it and say, one, I can vote with my feet because this $1,000 goes with me anywhere I go. But two, if you get 4 or 5 people together, that's $5,000 a month. You could look at some house and say, like, hey, it's a fixer-upper, but let's get in there and do a little bit of work. It makes the housing market much more dynamic because people aren't tied to a fixed location and everyone has a certain amount of buying power they're bringing. But I couldn't agree more that affordable housing is a massive national problem. We have to do more. There are some really exciting things that are at least technologically possible, not to get too wonky or nerdy on this, but you can do like 3D printed houses. You can do all sorts of stuff where you can produce a perfectly habitable, cozy dwelling, and you can produce it for really not that much money. Just right now, the incentives are not there for us to produce those units in a way that are accessible to the public. So those are the things that I would love to work with as president, because if we put the right incentives in place, we can take advantage of some of the efficiencies that do exist that right now are not being taken advantage of. Thank you. I was also in a shipping container house, and it was like pretty cozy too, So my wife always mocks me because I'm really attracted to what she calls man caves. And she's like, you do realize we have kids, right? Like, stop playing with a shipping container. And I'm like walking around being like, this place is perfectly cozy. Anyway.
Hi, my name is Rafaela Perez. I'm a college student, and so for me right now, I've noticed a lot of my friends are worried about, well, I don't want to get out of a major that could earn me some money. I don't want to get out of a major this will lead to a good job. So I'm just going to roll with it. And as a political science major, I've been tempted to be like, oh, I'll just go to law school because then I'll make some money. But that's not what I want to do at all. If and when you become president, what are you going to do to be able to help me out here too?
Well, first, what do you want to do, Rafaela?
Honestly, what I want to do is I eventually want to be in local politics. I want to be able to help people where I can, and that's going to be on the local level. I can do a lot on a national level, but if you're not in your community, you don't know what they want in the first place.
Yeah, that's real. And everyone apparently is very excited about that plan, so you should pursue it. There are a lot of things wrong with what's going on with our college educational setup. So, number one, we're over-prescribing college to too many young people. We should stop pretending that everyone should go to college, and we need to invest huge levels of resources in technical, vocational, and apprenticeship programs at the high school level. So, I'm the numbers guy, Boone. Only 6% of American high school students are in technical or trade programs. In Germany, that's 59%. Think about that gulf. So I'm going to team up with Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs, and then I'm going to invest billions and billions of dollars and try and get our 6% up. Now, that doesn't help the people who are in college, and many people will still be attending college, obviously. So why has college gotten 2.5 times more expensive over the last number of years? Did it get 2.5 times better? No, it didn't. It didn't get 2.5 times better. Spoiler. So, I went through the numbers to figure out why colleges got more expensive. Is it because they hired more professors? No. This is where it gets a little trickier. Is it because they built more facilities? Not really, it turns out. Small contributor. Part of it, too, is that if they do decide to build a new building, they're very likely able to fundraise for it because there are all these people who want to stick names on things. All right. So it turns out the two big drivers of the cost of college going up. Number one, cutbacks in public aid. States don't support it like they used to. And number two, administrative growth. Yes. The administrator to student ratio went up 150% as the cost went up 250%. You see that relationship? So you have to work with colleges and say, hey, let's try and get these costs under control. You can't just keep ratcheting. Pretty much anything in American life where their business model requires that raising prices every year, has to end. And so what are those businesses? It's essentially education, healthcare, and insurance. Has anyone ever gotten this letter from their insurance company? Great news, your rates are lower this year. No, none of us ever gotten that letter. And to some extent, housing. So you have to work with education to try it with these schools to get their costs down over time. Now, Rafaela, this is where it gets rough. After you graduate from college, there's a 40 to 44% chance that you're going to do a job that does not require a college degree. That's not you individually. That's just every college grad. Obviously, for you, you'll do something awesome. So think about what we're doing for our kids. We're saying like, hey, go to college. We're going to make it crazy expensive, have to take out crazy loans, and your prospects are worse than they've been in generations because there's almost a 50-50 chance you're doing a job that doesn't require a degree. So then you know what that kid does? Goes back to school. Because they're there being like, wait a minute, I'm underemployed, I'm a barista, I have a college degree. I guess I'm going to go to law school. Or grad school, or some other advanced degree, and then does that solve the problem? Well, it doesn't really solve the problem, honestly. So these are really major structural problems that we have to try and attack. So getting the cost of college down would be good, which I'm going to make happen as your president. I would forgive a significant chunk of the $1.6 trillion in student loan debt that's out there. And anyone who doubts about how that works, do you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street 12 years ago? If you had a choice between bailing out the banks or keeping Americans in their homes, which would you have chosen? Yeah, people in their homes. We have the same kind of choice with people and the banks on the student loan debt. This time we're going to choose our people. We're going to invest in our people. And Raphael, I also just want to close this and say law school is not the secure professional route that it was in past years. Oh, man. Yeah, anyway. I'm glad you know. It seems like you have. I think you should get into local politics and kick some butt and do something awesome, personally.
This will be our last question. Hi, Mr. Yang. My name is Logan. I actually, believe it or not, resonate with your speech because I graduated with my bachelor's degrees and then went to grad school for political science, and hopefully I'll go to law school. 2016, I was a registered Republican, but ever since I saw you, I flipped, and I have 35.
Yes!
I was just wondering, since I've never donated to a Democratic politician before, I have $35 in my wallet. Can I give that to you now?
That's so beautiful, man. What you can do instead of the $35, like it's an incredible gesture, is just find someone to join you in caucusing for the campaign on Monday, because that would be even more impactful. But thank you so much for that statement. What's the number one criteria that Democrats have for the nominee? Beat Trump. People who are betting real cash on this have me as the heaviest favorite to beat Donald Trump head to head. I am a 3-2 favorite against Trump. The next best candidate is even money. And you know who's figured this out? Donald Trump. So I'm going to throw a couple of facts out for you. One survey said that 18% of college Republicans would choose me over the president. Another poll said that 10% of Trump voters in the state of New Hampshire would choose me over the president. The reason we know Trump has figured this out, I am the only candidate in the field that he has never tweeted a word about. And he hasn't tweeted about me for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm better at the internet than he is. And number two, what are his best attacks? You're a corrupt DC politician. None of those things works on me. We know that he's worried about me because one of his senior most advisors was quoted in a meeting on video saying if there's anyone we're worried about, it's Andrew Yang. And as more Democrats realize that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in the general, you're going to see us rise and rise this whole time. And it's because of gentlemen like, what was your name again, sir?
Logan.
Oh, I should have remembered that because I thought Wolverine when you said it. But it's because of gentlemen like Logan who have come to this campaign and realized that we can solve our country's problems in a way that doesn't pit us against each other, that brings us together, and start actually focusing on the real issues of the day and not this back and forth food fight. Because the fact is, the parties have been playing you lose, I lose, you lose, I lose, like over and over again. And who's been losing that whole time? Us. That's right. So, Logan, I just want to thank you so much, let you know you're not alone, and I will be thrilled to be your president a year from now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Boone. Let's win this thing.
Give another round of applause.